Hello, I'm Natasha Chilingarian.
And I'm Michael Ogden. This is Shared Accounts with CU Times, sponsored this month by Boost AI. Ready to redefine what's possible in member service? Boost AI's advanced conversational AI is here to supercharge your credit union's operations and wow your members. Step into the future with confidence. Choose Boost AI. Okay, I'll spare you the details of my journey of getting a new iPhone recently. My old one couldn't hold a charge anymore. It even stopped making calls. Anyway, this process gave me a chance to see what stuff I'd held on in my phone, like going through a smartphone junk drawer. There were all kinds of stupid things. In this process, though, I saw how many lists I make and keep and forget about. I have a permanent list, for instance, called grocery store, where I update things I need to get to the store. Duh. But I have so many lists I'd forgotten about. One was a list of haikus from like 4 years ago. One was a list of medical questions for my doctor from 2019. I have a list of books that I'm never going to read, recipe notes, and even a list called problem words, which are words I actually just have a problem saying. It's stupid. But there was one list from a few years ago that I totally forgot about, and it really made me laugh. And I thought it'd be funny to keep track of how many times I sneezed in a month. So, Natasha, producer Zach, do you want to guess how many times I sneezed in July of 2021? I must have been bored during the pandemic.
Oh gosh.
So this was COVID time.
This was COVID, but I sneeze regularly anyway.
You had bad allergies, so I
Yes.
think if it was allergy season
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough because I don't know. Let's say if you sneeze several times a day, then
Yeah.
I'll say 60. So you
Okay.
sneeze a day.
Okay.
I will go high and say 145.
Okay.
Oh wow. Okay.
According to my notes in my phone, in July of 2021, I sneezed 121 times.
Oh wow.
All right.
Well, Zach, you were
Isn't that
closer
stupid?
on that one.
Oh,
That is
God.
really. You must have really been bored. Jeez, did you
I don't
got
know,
through everything
man.
on Netflix by then? I guess, and I
Maybe.
don't know.
Do you guys keep lists on your phones?
I do, yeah, and it's funny, as you were talking, I was thinking about the different lists I have. I also
Hmm.
have, some of the just basic ones, like notes on recipes of what I
Yeah.
need to cook, days off, like keeping track of my
Oh,
PTO,
yeah.
places I wanna travel to, keeping track
Okay.
of doctor's appointments. But there's one list that I don't know,
Hmm.
you might find interesting that I think is kind of quirky. I keep a list of names, like potential names for a future cat or dog that I might have, in the future.
Oh,
You wanna
that's
hear them?
adorable. Please, yeah, run through some.
Okay. All right, here we go. Deanie, Edie, Simonette, Pumpkin, Parka, Taffy, Dante, Diego, Rico, Birdie, Pom Pom, Avocado, Brulee, Souffle,
Okay.
Pancake, Tamale, Poppy, Edamame,
Oh,
Saki,
Jesus, you're still
Roasty,
going.
I am. Toffee,
Lots of food.
caramel, Gouda, dumpling, polenta, cannoli, ziti, Shasta, absinthe, Romeo,
Uh,
peekaboo, Brody, Bernadette, Saphira, and Celeste.
oh my God. I think you just cast a spell.
I hope not. Anyway, and I promise I don't want to
Great.
eat my future pet. I know a lot of these are
No, I
food
love
names,
polenta. That
and there's
sounds
a lot
great.
of them that go together. Like if you're to get two little pets
Ugh.
together, like a bonded pair. My
Yeah,
favorites are Brulee and Souffle,
I love it.
or edamame and sake to go
Love it.
for, just kinda
Yeah,
different
yeah.
cuisines. I don't
Oh,
know.
that's so good.
Yeah.
Zach, do you have any?
Really, the only interesting one I have is food that I would like to try at some point.
Oh.
Oh, such as?
Oh, just like if I'm watching a show and they're at like the Texas State Fair and I'm like, I would like to try deep fried butter.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, God. I think we've really encapsulated our personalities just with these three lists. That's really funny.
Mm.
Oh, my God. Thanks for that. And I suppose we should start the show? Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm on board.
Okay, let's do it. Welcome to Shared Accounts with CU Times. Coming Coming up, we're speaking with Allen Eaves. He's the financial crime solutions specialist for Jack Henry, which is a major technology solutions provider for banks and credit unions. We're going to be talking with him about that old pesky issue that never seems to go away and never fails to keep credit union leaders up at night: cybersecurity. He'll be bringing us up to speed on all the latest threats out there facing credit unions today. But first up, let's take a break from this week and check in with Natasha. Hey,
Hey, Em, how's it going?
oh my gosh, it's fine. I'm still sweating from that list of pet names. That was really
Oh,
funny.
gosh,
I
I hope it's
loved it
not a
so
bad
much.
sweat. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
I really did.
I guess I just need to get 35 pets to cover all of them, huh?
I will never visit you if you do that.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to it. We had kind of a lengthy interview with Alan, which was lovely. It opened a lot
Yeah.
of doors,
Oh, yeah.
different ideas and things we need to cover. But sorry, I want to ask you, what did you watch this past week?
I really didn't watch anything too
Okay.
notable. I know last time we talked, I mentioned there's 2 movies,
Mm-hmm.
but instead of telling you what I watched, I actually wanted to, because another thing I do, kind of a hobby of mine that I started during COVID and then now have continued, is just reading more books,
Yep.
reading more novels, and I read some nonfiction as well.
Mm-hmm.
I track them on the Goodreads app, and then I have the Libby app that I use for like library
Love
books.
that app.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there's 2 that I actually want to mention that one of them is probably one of my favorites of this year so far. It's called Moon of the Crusted Snow. It's
Okay.
by a Native American author. I'm gonna butcher the name, but it's Bob Geshig Rice.
Okay.
And it's about an apocalypse, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes place in northern Canada, like, almost like, have you ever looked on a Google map and then scrolled all the way up and zoomed in to see, "I wonder what it
Yeah.
looks like all the way there. What's up there? Are there
Yeah.
any photos?" That's, like, where it takes place, which I think is, like, fascinating,
Oh,
and it's, like, a native community.
yeah.
And yeah, it basically, like, everything just goes out, and then they find out that it's also gone out in communities south of them as well, and it's just this really, and I won't give away anything else, but it was so good. It was just this ominous, creepy story, and you're just
Mm-hmm.
wondering, I don't know, I couldn't put it down. It was really good.
Oh, nice.
Well written. So anyway, Moon of the Crusted Snow.
With crusted snow.
Another one, I'm currently reading it, and it is
Mm-hmm.
it might be a funny one actually for maybe listeners who are doing the office life and are feeling a little bit like the guy in Office Space at any point, just that whole
Okay.
culture. It's called "I Hope This Finds You Well," which is really funny
Oh,
because that's like something you would
yeah.
say in an email that's really
Yes.
just kind of a stupid
Yeah.
thing that you say it anyway, by
Mm-hmm.
Natalie Sue. And yeah, it's about like an office, and this woman is working in this office, and it turns out she suddenly, like, randomly can, like, see everyone else's email and instant messenger. Like, she can read what everyone is saying.
Oh,
It's, like,
no.
very revealing. It's just hilarious. So
I
yeah,
like the
that's one.
concept.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
And yeah, through that she kind of finds out that they all have just as pathetic, depressing lives as she does, I guess. I
Of
don't know.
course. Of course.
Yeah,
Oh, that's great.
were my picks.
Love it.
What about you? Did you watch anything that you wanted to bring
I
up?
did. I didn't think I'd watch it, but I went in and pulled the trigger on it. It's a new movie. It came out on Apple TV Plus.
Okay.
Matt Damon, Casey Affleck movie, The Instigators.
Okay. I hadn't heard of that. No, I hadn't heard of it. I don't have Apple anymore. My thing ran
Oh,
out. My free
right.
trial ran out.
It started out pretty good, and honestly,
Mhm.
Casey Affleck was the best part of the movie.
Oh, okay.
Matt Damon legit slowed the movie down. It really could have been funny. It was in certain moments, but the ending was so stupid that it made me angry
Oh,
that I
that's just so
watched
dumb
it.
when that happens. Yeah, it
It,
ruins the
it
whole
was.
thing.
It could have been great, and there are a few actors in there that are just fabulous, but it just didn't work. The
Oh,
Instigators. Don't
okay.
recommend.
No, alright. Alright,
Okay.
I will skip it for sure.
Okay. Great.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on, to our interview. You mentioned
Yep.
earlier, I think we had a ball chatting with Alan. I think it went very
Absolutely.
well. Like you mentioned, it really kind of sparked some new ideas too. I think you said you maybe came up with at least 3 new topics of as offshoots of what we were talking
Yeah.
about with him.
Do you want me to mention them?
Sure. Yeah, if you want to.
They were like, and again, we get into this a bit, the
Yeah.
TikTok influence on cybersecurity and the recruitment tool that it is.
Mhm.
Cybersecurity and the law in kind of a philosophical way. It's really tricky. And then the other one was legit just crisis communication planning for
Right.
cybersecurity and how crappy a lot of organizations are
Yeah,
at it.
right.
So,
Absolutely. Well, and I'll just say, the whole TikTok recruitment
mhm.
idea, that was probably a highlight of the interview for me. I was so fascinated
It was
because I asked
really
him,
interesting.
it's like, we talk about cybercrime and how to prevent it, but, I wanna know, like, who are these people actually doing this? Are they actually in, like, a organized office? Are they hidden in a basement?
I
Who are these people? And he really shed
don't know.
light on that, talked about how, if they're from a country like Russia or
Mhm.
can pass as being, not necessarily the word legal, but they're not gonna get caught. Like, they're not gonna get arrested in a country if, like, the country is also, like, endorsing it.
Correct.
So that
Yeah.
was interesting. Yeah,
Mhm.
and then he said that some of these cybercrime leaders are recruiting people on TikTok to
Yep.
join their I think that's really
Oof.
interesting, and I'm gonna might go on TikTok and see what these look like. I don't know, I'm
No, don't
curious.
do it.
Yeah. So, anyway,
Okay.
we had a lot of fun. We have
Yeah.
all that, talked about a lot of stuff with him, and it's coming up next.
Hey, listeners. This episode is sponsored by Boost AI. Attention, credit unions. The future of member engagement is here with Boost AI. Transform your operations, delight your members, and outshine the competition with their cutting edge conversational AI. Mention the Credit Union Times podcast, Shared Accounts with CU Times, for a VIP demo experience. Again, mention our podcast, Shared Accounts with CU Times. When you talk to Boost AI, they'll give you a VIP demo experience. That's cool. Don't settle for ordinary. Experience extraordinary service with Boost AI. Visit Boost AI today.
Joining us in the virtual studio today is Allen Eaves, Financial Crime Solutions Specialist for Jack Henry. Allen, hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining. All right, so first off here, was wondering if you could just share, just so our listeners can get to know you a little better, a little bit about your professional background and how you kind of ended up at Jack Henry. So, how long have you been with Jack Henry and how did you kind of end up there? And did you want to share a little bit about where you were prior to going to Jack Henry?
Yeah, so I've been with Jack Henry for a while now, 18 years.
Oh,
Mm,
I
wow.
came to Jack Henry by way of acquisition. So prior to Jack Henry, I was with Gladiator Technology Services. So
okay.
Okay.
Gladiator is the group that was bought by Jack Henry. I was a cybersecurity engineer. That's where I got my start. And I think at the time Jack Henry acquired us, I was heading up implementations and working with our customers on setting up their environments for cybersecurity, having, back at the time, firewalls, network intrusion prevention, detection devices. And
Mm.
Sure.
world was a little different place back then, but
Oh, yeah.
fundamentals are still
I
there.
would love to do a separate podcast on what cybersecurity was like 18 years ago when you first started. That would be a whole thing in itself, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about your role as financial crime solutions specialist. One, what do you do in the role? What are your responsibilities? And then to what extent does that involve directly helping credit unions with their cybersecurity?
Yeah, so I've been working in the fraud space for a while. So I mentioned I've been with Jack Henry for 18 years.
Mhm.
So up until last year, I was over with the group that we call Gladiator and Centurion. And so my role, I was over that line of the business. I've had different roles from managing our development teams, product teams, and back last year, this time, I was managing director over those business units. So work with a lot of customers, a lot of credit unions dealing with cybersecurity incidences. And about 15 years ago, worked closely with the Jack Henry Development Group, and I was part of the development product team at that time, building a fraud solution utilizing the technology that was available 15 years ago. So the world's changed a lot there as well. But what we built initially was something looking at internal fraud that had then
Yep.
evolved and started looking at the online payment space and what was going on with ACH wires and
Mhm.
corporate account takeover. So, I'm certified fraud examiner. I got that certification probably about 13 years ago. So, I've been in the fraud space for a while, and now I'm exclusively focused or more closely tuned in on the fraud side of the
Mhm.
equation, and certainly still stay very involved in the cybersecurity side as well. So, actually, Jack Henry at our annual conference is coming up in October, and I'm working on a session co-presenting with financial institution, and we're talking about fusion centers, and so talking with
Ooh.
a couple financial institutions about what they're doing with their cybersecurity team and
Mhm.
their fraud teams, and how those groups historically haven't really worked closely with each other,
Hmm.
but taking intentional steps to bring those groups together. And there's being a lot of benefit and a lot of pretty cool and creative things that are coming about the fusion of cybersecurity and fraud.
Can I ask you a quick follow up to all of that? Because sometimes I picture people doing their jobs like you and others, and I really make them out probably more cooler than they are. But indulge me for a second. I would absolutely get a financial crimes jacket for my team, like the FBI, and you're all wearing sunglasses. Maybe you have a theme song. You take off the sunglasses like David Caruso in CSI.
If you ever tuned into Jack Henry, a lot of thems will quote our mantra, and it's do the right thing, do whatever it takes, and
Yeah.
have fun. So that last part we do take seriously.
Okay, great.
Serious fun. And keep
Okay.
in mind, our division Gladiator provides a lot of different fun things you can do with that theme as well. So you think about
Yeah.
cybersecurity and Gladiator, and
Okay.
some of the folks on the team have played around and have their own 3D printers and have
Awesome.
pretty cool figurines that are custom made with
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Gladiator themes and awards
Fun.
for different accolades around the office.
I love this. Thanks for
That is so
indulging.
fun. Okay, so Alan, let's talk a little bit about ransomware because we've had a few interviews in the past, and each time we talked, I remember you identified that ransomware is still, a major threat to credit unions. It's just a continuing thing. And last month, we reported on this. It was a pretty major story for us. And I'm sure you've heard about it. Patelco Credit Union, they suffered a pretty major ransomware attack. From what I hear, and it led to their systems being down for over a week. There's been some lawsuits from members. That actually some news came out today.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually, right, Michael, and
Yep.
Peter's actually working on the story now as we speak, that they actually did expose member information in that. So I was wondering, so Alan, no, first of all, did you hear about that particular attack?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm certainly familiar with Patelco and some others that we've worked with at Jack Henry and
Mm-hmm.
consulted with.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, ransomware is a very real and present challenge that all financial institutions have to contend with. And
Hmm.
the drivers there, hopefully, are probably pretty obvious to most folks. The fact that that's where money is. So if the malicious actors have access to money, then that's where they're going to keep going. And as long as that's
Right.
continuing to be profitable, it's hard to imagine a world where ransomware isn't the problem we're having to deal with.
Yeah.
Right, right. Well, my question is, how can a credit union of this size, Patelco is nearly a $10 billion credit union, how could they have missed something like this? Could it have been prevented, or is this a situation where they really were doing everything right and got unlucky? You don't have to even speak specifically to Patelco, but just
Sure.
for a credit union that size to be hit by something that big, are they missing something really major, or is this just like an inevitable thing?
Yeah, I mean, I would caution against the notion that larger means more sophisticated or
Mm,
more stable. The
mm,
giants do fall, they fall harder when they fall. And that's not a rebuke against the different size or anything. That's
Mm-hmm.
simply a fact that all organizations have vulnerabilities. And the simple fact is, we don't know publicly all of
mm,
the ins and outs of their network, and we'll never have that information. A lot of that's
mm,
very specific. So the goal is, of course, to be as protected as possible. And you hear about situations where there's all sorts of crimes that happen, and sometimes there's defenses that are infiltrated that you're like, okay, they worked hard to get there, and other times they maybe had a lucky break. So
mm,
Mm-hmm.
I think that it could go either way. The question of protection and kind of what you can do to protect, oftentimes one of the more effective ways is endpoint protection solutions. So I think that the disruption we've heard just recently with Delta Airlines, I actually was personally caught up in that. I was sitting at the
mm.
Yeah.
Hartsfield
Oh,
Jackson
wow.
Airport for 2 solid days trying to get to Denver, and I
Oh
was on
my
the road
Oh
God.
my
5 nights.
gosh.
All four canceled, and yeah, it was a complete circus. But that was an instance of Delta was trying to do the right thing by having endpoint detection on their systems that unfortunately had a giant turn in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Thankfully,
Yeah.
not from a malicious intent, but certainly very disruptive.
Well, God bless Patelco. I mean, we feel for him, but the stories just keep coming. Like Natasha was saying, Peter just filed a news story on this as we've been speaking. I do want to dig in a bit more to ransomware, Alan. This is a few-part question here, but first, how is ransomware affecting the credit union industry overall right now?
So one of the things that we mentioned actually just a little bit earlier in conversation, the
Hmm.
fact that the security world's changed a lot over 18 years. I mean, that's the obvious statement. I would say 18 years ago, one of the big things is most folks in the C-suite, they cared probably about cybersecurity, but it really
Yeah.
probably was something more left to the nerds and the folks in the back office that are
Hmm.
sorting things out. No offense to nerds, I'll self-identify there as well.
Hey, we love them.
Good thing to be a nerd. We love nerds. But the point is, the folks in the C-suite and the business side probably were less tuned in on the cybersecurity.
Hmm.
They understood it was a risk; it needed to be managed. Potentially, they understood that, maybe not. everybody gets it now. So if you
Yeah.
know, and everybody knows an organization that's been hit by ransomware, and everybody can imagine what happens when my systems are not available. What
Yeah.
happens if my confidential data is been exfiltrated and now have a actual dollar amount being held over me saying pay this money. In business terms, it's something very relatable. And I
Mhm.
think there's something that's pulled cybersecurity into the mainstream conversation. Now, certainly not all the nuances of the attack protocols and the details of what's going on in the way that the war is being fought, but the impacts of it, I think, are a lot more in our face simply because it has direct business implications.
Yeah. Two more questions on this question here. Have you worked with any credit unions that were hit by ransomware? And can you share how that kind of came to light and then how it was dealt with?
Yeah, so we work with a good number of credit unions that have been various stages of a ransomware attack. And
Yeah.
I think that just like any kind of an attack, there's typical flows of how things operate. And so
Mhm.
if you find yourself in a responsive posture because you get a pop-up screen saying your systems have all been infected and turns out they're not bluffing and you actually have had your systems infected, perhaps they've exfiltrated data,
Yeah.
you're in a very different posture than if you're able to detect that up front and you've got the alarms going off because you've detected some code that's maybe infected a small segment of the network. So
Mhm.
there's absolutely not a one size fits all ransomware attack. And then on top of that, depending upon where you caught it, the analogy immediately that comes to mind is if you've got somebody in your family that's dealt with cancer or a disease, if you
Mhm.
catch it early, you've got a lot more options than if you're later in the game. And same is
Yeah.
true for an environment that might be infected.
Good analogy.
I think the other thing probably that's worth noting, I get to work with a lot of customers because I'm part of a group from Jack Henry that works with both banks and credit unions. We invite both banks and credit unions to these events
Mhm.
where we do a cybersecurity forum. And one of the big themes that runs throughout those days is a mock exercise. And we change it each year. As part of the exercise, we'll have different types of cyber attacks. And so in recent years, it's been different variations, and we'll take actual true variants of malicious code and work with what happens if that's infected in different types of environments. And then we go through what that response protocol can be and how it can
Mhm.
manifest itself from time of discovery to how you try to control it, how do you control the narrative. And I think one of the things that is particularly interesting coming from seeing a lot of different organizations that are dealing with ransomware attacks in the real world is you see some that on the onset you look at it and we'll work with the customer and you're like, okay, this is a big problem,
Yeah.
and they do a good job managing it, and the impact can be significantly less than what it would have been had they taken some maybe more common approaches.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is I've seen also organizations we've worked with that have had a bump in the night, maybe a smaller incident, and you're like, okay, they can come around this, and they have some big missteps in the response.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it makes a world of difference what your response is and how you respond, not just from a technical side, but from a business side, a communication side, how you engage legal, when you engage legal, insurance as well. All of the factors, all of the various pieces of the business need to be coordinated, need to work together because it is tremendously impactful to ultimately how the credit union fares on the other side of that.
I think that's a wonderful topic right there, Natasha, Allen. I think we should do another show about crisis communications
Oh, that's a
and
good point, yeah.
planning on
Mhm.
this.
I'll tell you, there's a credit union that within the last year, they're not a direct customer, but they called
Yeah.
us and we were helping them. And they were undergoing a cyber attack and ransomware was involved. And what not to do. This was oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening mode.
Oh no.
Oh, wow.
We went to their public credit union's Facebook page, and there is a membership responses saying, da 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 da, this is going on, this breach is happening.
Yeah.
The credit union's technical team was responding to that and saying no and trying to correct them about their quote unquote facts of the situation as they saw it, exposing tons of confidential information about
Oh
the way
Oh
that
great.
the
my
credit union
gosh,
was
on the Facebook page? What?
on Facebook, publicly available. And
Oh,
I'll tell you, we weren't even following the credit union at that time. We weren't even friends or anything. So it
oh
wasn't
boy.
like within
Oh
amongst members. It
no.
was just publicly out there available for the entire world to see. So we grabbed screenshots, and they were wise enough to know to take down as much as they can and delete as much as they could. But
Wow.
it was all out there for a period of time.
Wow.
Amazing.
Definitely a don't. There we go.
Please don't.
You would think you would know that, but yeah, it's
Well,
crazy.
and that's one of the things that When going through the exercises, one of the things that I always try to remind folks of is when you're talking about messaging, everybody's, well, what do we say? How do we say it? Do we tell the full story? Do we try to say it's a technical issue we're looking into? And there's a whole lot of conversation about that. But
Mhm.
it's probably a really good time to remind everybody, the staff at the credit union, there's only select individuals that are the authorized communication
Yep.
voices of the credit union. And
Right.
so
Mhm.
that goes to Facebook, social media, external parties as well, because communications in these instances is so important to keep dialed in and correct.
Absolutely. Right.
Wow.
Okay. Well, yeah, again, we could do a whole other podcast on that for
And we
sure.
should.
We
Yeah.
should. No, I think it's a good idea. All right, but let's move on from ransomware. Obviously, there's other threats out there, unfortunately, as well. Alan, what are you seeing as some of the other big threats to credit unions right now from, I guess, either a cyber perspective or just a fraud perspective?
The world is a tough environment and there's a lot of things going on. One of the things that I mentioned earlier is the Fusion Center. Pretty cool and something I'm excited about, where you see the cybersecurity staff working with the fraud staff and bringing
Mhm.
together their expertise to better protect the credit union. I think that's particularly important because we've seen the adversaries do something similar where, and this is
Hmm.
not a brand new thing. We've seen different
Yeah.
variations of it, but we see where there's a cyber attack, and right along with that cyber attack, there is direct financial implications. And whether that's fraud attack that's occurring at the same time and the cyber attack is a smokescreen or disrupting the organization. And
Mhm.
oftentimes what we see is if you're undergoing a fraud attack, and let's say that there's ransomware involved, most of the times the focus of the credit union is how do we take care of our members? How do we service our members? How do we make sure that the payments go out as they need to? How do we go back to business continuity? Business continuity is the focus.
Hmm.
Well, oftentimes business continuity doesn't have as its first thought fraud prevention, and it
Yeah.
makes the environment one that's ripe for an easy pass for fraudulent activity.
So could we talk about AI and cybersecurity for a second? I'm curious how AI is enabling cyber criminals to be more successful. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that the most obvious or most direct way is it's rare that I am told that I'm a Nigerian prince relative that,
Sure.
right?
That,
We
that
all get
doesn't
those.
come around so much anymore. No.
Yeah, they finally moved on from that. Yeah.
That lineage just kind of fell apart, I guess. I don't know what
Yeah.
happened.
RIP.
Yeah.
We all had those emails back in the day, and we all had
Oh, yeah.
emails about the common big ones, and we all probably had emails that were spelled poorly and bad grammar, and some of us can pick that out and say,
Yeah.
yeah, this doesn't sound legit. AI makes that a lot easier, not only where you're able to create fishes and you're able to create lures of plausible stories, and oftentimes very specific data about their intended target. The cyber criminals are able to take that data and bring it all together and make it very convincing and very much just like
Right.
what you would expect a legitimate email to look like.
Hmm.
And then when you
Hmm.
click that link, if your system is vulnerable, it is able to take advantage of that vulnerability.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Ooh.
Well, and so, Michael, I was going to bring up, we're actually dealing with kind of a interesting situation at CU Times. There's this,
Ugh.
a person has been texting all these credit union executives from various credit unions, posing as a CU Times reporter and trying to
Mm,
line up an interview. So we almost every day we're getting a new message from a credit union saying, "Is this a legitimate reporter?" And we have to say, "No, it's not. Thanks for letting us know. Our legal team is looking into it." So yeah, that's I guess an example of it. Thankfully, they were able to notice that it was because there were even some misspellings in it, which is like hopefully a reporter wouldn't, a real reporter wouldn't have misspellings. But yeah, we're actually dealing with that ourselves. So
interesting. Yeah, and that's not uncommon. I
yeah,
know in the last month, a couple C-suite individuals that have had to send out emails saying, "Hey, that's not me. I would never ask you to provide such a generic request." And
Hmm.
right, yeah, it's been
you
crazy.
can't rely on only the misspellings or even the nature of the request any
Yeah.
longer. You got to be more wise and more scrupulous on what's going on.
Right, right. Okay, well, just going back to AI again, really quick. So, just on the flip side, should credit unions be using AI tools to identify and thwart attacks? So, it's kind of like there's two parts to AI. The criminals are using it to get better, but then there's also AI like fraud detection tools. Is that something that you have an opinion on at all? Like credit unions using AI tools themselves to help prevent fraud?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that same thing as of any tool. A hammer can be used for building a house, or it can be used for busting out a window. used for a
Yeah.
couple of different things. Same with AI. I mean, AI has good side and the bad side to it as well, certainly. On the good side, it's incredibly powerful to bring together large amounts of data and to reach insights in effective ways that frankly have not been scalable in the past. So one of the ways that particularly exciting that we're working with AI on really analyzing transactions is consortium models. And so as we have better sharing of what's going on with fraud patterns, 314B protocols allow for that sharing. We bring that data in and we're able to use that consortium of data and looking for those patterns and then say, okay, we see some pattern matching here. And then we're able to flag that alert. That's happened in the cybersecurity world for a long
Hmm.
time. So in the cybersecurity world, the techniques, tactiques, protocols, and the indicators of compromise and the sticks and taxis have all allowed us to take that data, integrate it into detection, and really have some powerful alerts and some very valuable alerts. And that's now coming to the fraud space. And
Yeah.
AI has been a part of what's enabled that to come to life and that model based approach. So that's part of it. I would say the second part of it is the quick decision making, and that model approach of being able to make a determination very quickly allows the credit union to be more proactive in the response versus having to work through slower responses, slower decision making.
All right. In a big picture way, how do you view who or what is responsible for carrying out these big cyber attacks? Are they countries, foreign adversaries, one dude? I don't know. I mean, who is it now?
Some of it we know. So some of the big variants of ransomware, there's the top several are often working in a model where there is ransomware as a service. So you've got the makers of the ransomware are typically not the ones that are using the ransomware to infect the credit unions.
Hmm.
Typically, the big players out there, the big variants you get hit with, there's a couple entities you want to know when you're dealing with a ransomware attack. One is, what am I dealing with software wise? What capabilities does it have? Then you also, if you can find out who is the subscriber, who's the actual one that's conducting the attack, you
Okay.
can probably get some good information of what's typical for that organization.
Okay.
Are they typically bluffing? Do they typically give you access to the data or hold to their word if you pay the ransom? It's good information to have as you're making decisions.
Great.
Right. Michael asked, I actually came up with that question because I was like thinking like, well, I mean, I'm trying to picture this. Like, I don't think it's someone
Yeah.
sitting in a basement in a hoodie. Is it actually like they're working out of an office somewhere in another country? Is it, I mean, it's illegal, right? So it's not like they're like a registered company. Like, I don't know.
Is it illegal? I would challenge
Well,
that a little bit
oh,
with the simple
oh,
notion that if the actors are in Russia or a
mm,
country that
Hmm.
perhaps doesn't have friendly relations with the U.S., is it illegal to be conducting the activity they're doing? Maybe by the letter of the law, but by the way that they
oh,
enact their law and the way that they enforce their law,
hmm.
maybe not. So there's several specifics that we could dive into of individuals that the U.S. has a bounty out for
Oh, okay.
the actors of particular malicious code. And I'm actually working on a presentation that's part of our next year's cybersecurity forums that there are millions of dollars available if you happen to know the bad guy and can get the bad guy reported and have it reported out. It's very interesting how it's not as cut and dry because there are some celebrities, if you will, of the fraudulent attacks and of the ransomware world that
Hmm.
Wow.
in many cases we know about, the US knows about, and in many cases not only do we know, but it's public knowledge for anybody that wants to go see what we know about who the bad guy is. It's kind of that most wanted poster.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't really know exactly where they're at. Maybe they're in a particular country, or maybe it's tough to get a position where we have authority or jurisdiction over arresting that individual.
Right. Kind of like a Pablo Escobar situation, or I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
just trying to think of a
Yeah.
comparison.
there's
I like it.
Griselda.
there's some really cool stories. I'd have to go back to get the specifics of the names, but there was one that I was reading about that is really, really cool where the US government and crime enforcement organizations had convinced malicious actors and ransomware actors to come to the States. And as soon as they landed in Hartsfield Jackson Airport in Atlanta, they were ready to lock them down and exited the airplane and took them right into custody. So
Okay.
as soon as
Yeah.
we got them on
So,
US soil, those scenarios, they are real. And there are several news stories out there that talk to what's going on in those spaces. And it's some interesting stuff.
I'm sure, yeah. Well, and also another thing I kind of wonder about is like, how does, not the top person in that group, but someone that's just working for them, how do they get involved, and do they think of it as like, oh, I got this great job, or is it like out of desperation because they don't have any other options, or I guess probably depends on the culture they're living in, or I don't know. It'd
Well,
be interesting to profile a person who's joined one of these and what their, intentions were.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you have TikTok. I'm not a big TikTok user, but
No, yeah, I'm a little old for that, but I do have it. So
same here, same here. However, I have a lot of TikToks that are forwarded my way and poking around a little bit. There are a lot out there that are recruitment videos, and
oh,
they've got
wow.
popular folks, or maybe not popular folks, but individuals that are rapping or looking like they're cool and showing
Mm.
money and flaunting the wealth that they have.
Wow.
Sometimes in a mode that is kind of like, oh, I want to be mysterious and be that person. Sometimes in a, I'm traveling the world, I'm living a luxurious life, come do
Yeah.
this. You want the funds to be able to live this lifestyle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really interesting. Yeah.
I think that the makeup of the fraudster, well, I know the makeup of the fraudster can differ in a lot of ways. And so some of the groups, you do get kind of a call center type environment. And there's some pictures we have where you see all the mobile devices on a big wall, on a big plywood board. And so they're using to call out and try to conduct fraud. And
Yeah.
then
Mhm.
calls in and somebody grabs the call. And so we've got some pictures of those shops as law enforcement shut them down.
Wow.
And then some are very distributed. It's kind of like, the legitimate workforce in a lot of ways, where
Wow.
you've got some people that show up in an office and some people that work remote.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting.
Criminal
Wow.
enterprise is the same way.
Right. I found that so fascinating.
Mhm.
Okay, so Alan, just a couple more quick questions before we move on to part two of our interview. I know you mentioned earlier about that big don't, like the credit union that was on Facebook and they were sharing sensitive information and kind of that communication disconnect. Is there anything else that you want to mention that is, what are you seeing other credit unions get wrong overall in some of their approaches, if there's anything that stands out to you recently?
Messaging, there is a ton that you could go into there in just
Mhm.
how the communication happens, and even good intent where you're trying to be transparent and trying to have reporters giving access to the true story so that members know what's going on, can be concerning if the right proper guidelines and boundaries are not put in place. So one of the big hazards that I see is the communications and how that's managed, and internal to the organization as well as external. So I think we oftentimes think about communications as how do we interact with members and what's that message there. But even internal at the credit union, if we're not very careful in managing the scenario, it can spiral out of control and then leak outside the organization and have
Right.
significant impacts. I think the other challenge is just how prepared and how aware is the incident response team of the
Mhm.
environment that they're having to work within. And what I mean by that is, if right now today you were to hear that your credit union had a large amount of data that had left the organization and was now for sale online, what tools do you have to validate, is that legitimate? Did that actually happen, or are they bluffing? And for the Federal Reserve there, they had something very similar to that happen recently, where malicious actors had compromised a single financial institution and claimed that they had compromised a much bigger fish
Mhm.
and were trying to negotiate a huge payment. Their bluff was called and they didn't actually have the big fish that they thought they did. However, it was contentious. I'm sure that the folks were really wondering, do they really have the data or not? And without having good, solid detection systems or good, solid environments that you really know where your assets are and understand what controls you have in place, it puts you into a much more questioning environment when you're trying to respond versus
Mhm.
being able to make good decisions and move forward.
Right. Okay, one final question on this topic for you. So, as an expert yourself on financial crimes, I'm wondering, what are some best practices that you follow in your own daily life, or like say on your personal computer and on your smartphone or with your own financial accounts, to avoid being a victim of fraud or ID theft yourself? I'm curious. Like, I don't know, like how do you manage your passwords, for example? I'm just curious how
Passwords.
you go about it, if you have some tips for us.
Well, I do not like passwords. I'll be
Okay.
the first to say passwords drive me crazy.
Mhm.
Can't even guesstimate how many
Yeah.
passwords we have, and so many of them are like, why am I creating a password for something that I'm going to use one time and never come
Yep.
back to, and something that really probably doesn't need to be secure in the first place? It's
Right.
it's very frustrating. I would love to have a silver bullet or a solid answer on passwords. I'll tell you what I do, and I'm not saying I necessarily recommend it, but I think it's all right. I do write down my passwords. And I know that some folks, that's maybe a controversial topic, but I secure where they're at and they are not in common view. And so, in order for somebody to get access to that document, would be a lot of physical hoops they would have to jump through before they would
Hmm.
have access to that. And my family knows where it's at. So, if something were to happen to me, or I was unavailable or traveling or something, and they needed access to some of those passwords, they would have access to that. And I think that that's important, because I think a lot of times we don't think about what happens if our password safe or wherever it's at is offline or unavailable, or that device is compromised. There's so many
Yeah.
different variables that I think the good old fashioned securing a document and having it recorded somewhere isn't such a bad idea.
Okay.
Mm.
Well, I have them all written in a note on my phone, which
Yeah,
maybe a
right.
little
In a
secure, I
Word
don't know, but
document right there.
yeah,
Please
maybe I should
don't
make
put
sure
it
it's
as a notes document called passwords on your desktop. Please, please, please.
right, yeah. But I've also frozen my credit, like, on all 3 bureaus, so I figure that's a good kind of
Same
high
here.
level.
Great, 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 great recommendation.
Right, right. Yeah.
Hopefully, you're in
So
a position where you can plan ahead if you need your credit, and that's not something you need in
right. Yeah, you can
emergency
just unfreeze
situations.
it and even just, a
Absolutely.
few minutes, yeah, if you need
So
to
yeah,
apply for something, so anyway.
I
Okay,
wish
cool.
that that was the default posture for everybody, just that you didn't have access to that credit
Yeah.
until you said, "Hey, here we go." But
Mhm.
yeah,
Sounds kind of extreme, but yeah, it's actually so far it's worked
I
for
don't
me. I
think it's
haven't had a
extreme at
problem.
all. I mean, the fact that you've got to authorize your credit to be extended and then
Mhm.
give a little bit of a space there, perhaps for it to be unfrozen. I think that that's reasonable, and for most folks, I think that they would choose that over the risk of somebody compromising their
Right.
identity and taking out lines of credit in their name.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, yay. Good to know I'm doing the right thing. Okay. All right, Alan, let's go ahead and move on to part 2. This is the fun part of the interview because it is all about you. Are you ready?
I guess so. Let's see
Okay.
where this goes.
Okay, so I know so you currently live in Alpharetta, Georgia, correct?
Athens, Georgia.
Oh,
So
Athens. I'm sorry.
no,
That's where
all
the
good.
Jack
Yeah.
Henry.
Jack
uh,
Henry does have an office in Florida. Athens, Georgia is home. So I'm
okay.
just under a mile from University of Georgia's campus. So it's about to be a fun time of year with
Oh,
football coming
yeah.
up.
Yeah, sure. And so is that your hometown? Did you grow up in Athens?
I was born inside of Atlanta. So Decatur is
Okay.
where I was
Mhm.
born specifically. And so families always lived somewhere between Athens and Atlanta. So it's
Okay.
my multi generations go back in Georgia, so Georgia's home. I will tell you, I'm a big traveler. I love seeing the world, and so Hartsfield Jackson Airport is a wonderful thing to have in your backyard. We got access to direct flights, many places.
Absolutely.
I know that's a controversial topic. I've got a lot of colleagues that cringe when they hear they have a layover in Atlanta. So
No,
I
Atlanta's
enjoy Atlanta
lovely.
Airport.
Fine, yeah.
It's organized,
Yeah.
it's well laid out, I think, and when you know how to navigate it, it gives you access to a lot of the world.
Sure. So you just mentioned University of Georgia is just down the street from you. Is that where you graduated?
It is, yes.
Okay. So here's what I'm going to ask. You have some notable alumni, including Wayne Knight, who played Newman on Seinfeld, Ryan Seacrest, Samuel L. Jackson, Herschel Walker, and Kim Basinger. If you had to pick any one of these to hang out with, who would it be?
To hang out with. Oh, I don't know,
Yeah.
man. I mean, Wayne Knight seems like a funny guy. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, if we're hanging out or having a beer, then that sounds like a good time.
It's a great pick. You get to ask about
Classic.
Seinfeld, Jurassic Park. You get to talk about
Yeah.
a lot of things.
Absolutely.
I love that one.
Okay, your career path has been fighting financial crime, cybersecurity. If you had to go back in time and choose like a totally different career outside of what you're doing now, what would it be? Like, was there something else you had in mind, like when you were a kid, something else you wanted to be when you grew up that you kind of got away from, or what else would you choose if you had to choose something else?
So when I started off at the University of Georgia, my
Hmm.
major started off as agricultural engineering. I have
Oh,
a kind of an engineering mindset. I also enjoy plant life and landscaping and botany. And so
Yeah.
I've always thought there's an age you get to where you can audit a class at the university and there's no cost for that class. So I'm like, all right, well,
Hmm.
that's a perfect retirement plan, is just to go and be with a bunch of young kids and learning new things from professors.
mm,
That excites me a lot. So for a different career path, I enjoy working, building, and solving problems. So I could see myself having gone a route of engineering or building things because I enjoy that tangible part. So I've got a historic home that is over 100 years old that always
Yeah.
working on renovation projects. And
oh, cool.
after sitting in front of a computer for a long part of the day, it's good to build something.
Oh, absolutely.
Very nice. I love this. Okay, Alan, back to your childhood. What was the first album you ever bought or remember listening to?
Whew, what was that? I think it was Toad the Wet Sprocket. My
Oh,
yeah, and so that
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, yeah. No, I remember. Yeah.
goes back a minute. I've seen them live in concert in the Atlanta area as well. I think they were on David Letterman one night, and I
Sure.
remember my dad was always he worked the late shift, so watched
Hmm.
David Letterman when he got home from work, and
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, I think that connected me to them, and so that was
Yeah.
probably my first.
Okay.
They have a
Well,
few
fun.
solid songs. I saw them open for the Cranberries
Okay, yeah,
in '93, maybe? Something back then. They were great.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Athens has a
Well,
great
another
music scene too. So if you're ever
Oh,
down this
yeah.
oh,
way,
okay.
we've
Yeah.
got
Heck, man. Yeah, REM is home from around there. So, I mean,
yeah, I
that's
can
a
look
home
out
area.
my back window and see their manager and attorney's house just from
Oh,
window. And Michael
Wow.
Stipe
oh,
lives down the
That's
road,
fun.
so Michael Stipe hunkered down during COVID here in
yeah.
Athens. So we'd run into
Oh,
him at the
interesting.
grocery store,
Oh,
and
Oh, you live in a cooler neighborhood than I do. Okay.
yeah, kind of jealous. That's fun. Okay, final question here, Alan. What was the last movie you watched?
ooh, what was that? Oh, I think it was, I forget the name of it now, but it's the Minions one. It's out in the theaters. So
Oh,
watched that
Oh, okay.
Despicable
yesterday.
Me or
Yeah, they did another take on it. They have several out there, but
Okay.
they're
Yeah.
a little silly, a little fun. So
Sure.
an easy laugh.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. I haven't seen them, but yeah, I remember when I worked in a credit union, someone dressed their whole department up as minions and they won like best costume of the whole. I don't know.
Oh,
That's what
gee.
first thing I thought of, kind of a silly.
They had an interesting showing at the Paris Olympics too, because I think that some
Oh,
of
really?
the writers or some of the voices behind the characters, I'm not sure exactly what the connection is, but they're there in Paris,
Huh.
so they had
Well, that's cute.
some funny little cameos.
Nice.
Okay. Fun. All right. Well, Alan Eaves, Financial Crimes Solutions Specialist with Jack Henry. Thanks so much for joining us today. This was a lot of fun, very informative.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Alan.
absolutely. And for our listeners, please subscribe to Shared Accounts with CU Times anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, wherever. You know how this works. And if you want to rate us, we would love your feedback. For those of you with questions or comments, feel free to email me over at nchillingarian@cutimes.com, or you can email Michael at mogden@cutimes.com.
Also, thank you to our sponsor this month, Boost AI. Ready to make a bold move? Boost AI is revolutionizing the way credit unions interact with their members. With cutting edge conversational AI, it's time to stand out, lead the way, and be unforgettable. Dare to be different with Boost AI. Also, thank you so much to our producer, Zach Nyheisel. Thanks, Zach. And join us again next week for a new episode of Shared Accounts with CU Times. Until then, thanks for listening.